Let the record reflect we have reconvened with all members present. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a motion for the executive minutes of February 23rd, 2015.
I'll move them.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
And a motion for the regular minutes of February 23rd, 2015.
I'll move them.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Welcome, everyone. It is, I won't jinx it by saying welcome to spring, but I'll say at least it's nice to come out without having to wear 30 layers and worrying about what's coming down from the sky. So we'll enjoy it while we have it. Couple of announcements and a few presentations. During one of the storms last week, there was 3 of them. I lost track of which one, but Patrolman Kevin Boone was responding to an issue and took a fall on the ice. He is recovering now from knee surgery. Will be out for several weeks, actually a couple of months, and he is in our thoughts, and we're hoping for a quick recovery. Also, Mayor Holden, to Florida, so our condolences go out to her and her family in this difficult time. I want to thank all the residents that came out to the Pilgrim Pipeline informational meeting. We had several hundred people that attended that last Wednesday, and they heard Brendan Keating, who did a presentation on the overall concept. Diane Alexander presented the legal issues behind and related to environmental law behind it, and also Dave Pfeiffer from ANJAC talked about some of the environmental issues that face that pipeline. And I want to thank our legislative team, State Senator Dick Cody, Assemblyman John McKeon, and Assemblywoman Mila Jacey, who joined us. That was Governor/Dick Cody, not the governor was not there. And we'll be talking a little bit more about Union Beach, but a reminder, I hope it's on your calendars already, that March 26th, coming up the end of this month, our second annual Union Beach Bowl-a-thon from 5 to 9 p.m. with all the proceeds going to support the summer camp program, again, sending children from Union Beach who are still experiencing of summer camp and some normalcy in their lives. And our next council meeting will be honoring the high school ice hockey team for their great success this year. I will promise not to do a Al Michaels imitation and do you believe in miracles, but we do want to recognize them for their doing Madison proud. And I think there's still a few Ridgedale Avenue residents in the audience that came out at 6:30 tonight. We had a presentation by Bob Vogel on the reconstruction project that will be going out to bid in the next couple of weeks. So thanks to all the Ridgedale residents that came out and shared their, asked questions and shared their thoughts on the project. And last Thursday, in another night of lovely weather, we were at Investors Bank. That was Thursday night, right? I'm losing track of everything. I want to congratulate them on their new home as they move from Waverly Place to Main Street. And it's just it's a beautiful new bank branch, and certainly a incredible improvement on that corner. So it was great to celebrate that with them. And also, I want to thank the council for signing. We're sending 2 cards out, one to Gene and Rose Zipper. Gene and his wife Rose would sit in the front row here. They have not been able to make the council meetings, and we truly miss them, so we are sending them a card. And also our good friend Louise Patterson, who I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, had recently undergone surgery, and so she's not been able to join us. So thank you, council, for signing their cards. The Employee of the Month for March is Jim Trimble of the Utilities Department for his extra effort in the absence of 2 injured meter readers, and especially a great time of year to be short-staffed, but Jim didn't let the snow, cold, and all that from slowing him down. He worked additional hours in not great conditions and took on the added responsibilities of customer serviceman, which is for final readings and other related things. And he kept up with his usual meter reading responsibilities. So congratulations to Jim. And our anniversary for 30th anniversary, Madison Public Library, Adrian Tawil, again, is celebrating 30 years on March 18th. And before I come down for resolution and presentation, I don't think anyone is here to accept the National Poison I can't talk today for some reason. National Poison Prevention Week. So let me just do a quick little abbreviated version of this proclamation. National Poison Prevention Week is March 15th to the 21st. And Congress designated the 3rd week in March to be the National Poison Prevention Week in 1961, and since then this week has helped raise national awareness on the dangers of potential poisonous medicines, household chemicals, and other substances. And to recognize that unintentional poisoning is the leading cause of unintentional injury death in New Jersey, and although the majority of reported poisonings involve children under the age 6, the majority of poison deaths occur in adults ages 20 to 59. And very important, every poisoning is preventable. And one of the things I want to point out this year is that single-load laundry packets are very attractive to children, so please make sure that they're secured and not in sight where the child can grab them. And want to make sure you know that if in the event you need help through Rutgers Medical School, there's a free expert medical advice, drug information, and poison prevention education New Jersey residents through 800-222-1222. That was 800-222-1222. And it is available 24/7, 365 days a year. And even during things like Superstorm Sandy, when other places are down and actually the potential for poisoning goes up, they are guaranteed that will be manned. So don't worry about the weather. And just one last thing, New Jersey poison experts encourage all residents to program the poison helpline, again that number 800-222-1222 into your home phone and cell phone. So now I, Robert H. Conley, Mayor, Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, hereby proclaim the week of March 15th through 21st as National Poison Prevention Week in New Jersey. Encourage all residents to pledge their commitment to ensuring the safety of themselves, their families, and their community. And Barb Short is here from Quest Diagnostics, right? Come on up, Barb. So we talked about sending campers our children from Union Beach to summer camp, and our partner from day one, and our partner again this year, Quest Diagnostics. And so I want to thank you. And look, we have a check for Camp Spears YMCA, which is where we have sent virtually all our campers to, giving them an experience of a lifetime.
Thank you, Bob. So great credit to Peg Cody, who has rallied multiple stakeholders in this community together for this cause. And we all know that folks rush to support when a disaster happens, but recovery is a long process. And it's about prevention, particularly when you're talking about youth. So we really are proud to be a part of a community that brings its stakeholders together to help another town. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I've quoted this so many times, but the one postcard that keeps touching me from our first summer from one of the campers saying, "This is the best vacation ever. I'm not sad anymore." So that is the difference we are making in these children's lives. So thank you so much. We have the Resolution 84, 2015, resolution of the Borough of Madison confirming membership of Craig J. Thomas in the Borough Madison Hook and Ladder Company Number 1. Rob, would you like to make a motion?
Sure.
Sorry,
let
put
me
you right
see.
on the spot
No
as
problem.
as our public safety.
Resolution 84-2015, resolution of the Borough of Madison confirming membership of Craig J. Thompson in the Madison Hook and Ladder Company Number 1. I move resolution R-84-2015.
Right,
I
sorry.
think I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? May I have roll call vote, please?
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
All right, may I have Chief up here, Craig Thomas, and whoever will be holding your Bible and assisting you, please come and join. Stand right here so we're kind of facing towards the camera. And
Chief, take a picture. You should come up, right?
raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible, and repeat after me. I say your name.
I, Craig J. Thomas,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of
all the duties of
volunteer firefighter,
volunteer firefighter,
Madison Hook and Ladder, number 1,
Madison Hook and Ladder Number 1,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I further solemnly swear
I further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
and will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
and the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Welcome aboard. Congratulations. Okay, reports from committees. Community Affairs, Ms. Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Senior Center, the AARP tax program began February 11th. Volunteers see about 20 clients each Wednesday. There are 7 counselors and 3 time slots scheduled. So they're rapidly approaching capacity. And the telephone reassurance program has been taken over by a new group, and our staff is coordinating with the RSVP staff, getting certification and introducing the technology for us to resume the telephone reassurance program. This is for people who are shut in, who need to have a call once in a while, make sure everything's okay. And, be warned, anybody who is participating in the scavenger hunt, Carmela Vitale has a very strong team, including many of our senior citizens. From the DDC, the Downtown Development Commission, and the Madison Area YMCA have partnered to sponsor that downtown scavenger hunt. It'll be Saturday, March 21st. Registration forms are on the DDC webpage on the RoseNet. Taste of Madison is coming Monday, March 30th to the Park Avenue Club. You can acquire tickets. They can be purchased at www.tasteofmadison.org. And it's not too soon to sign up for May Day, which will be May 2nd. That is our volunteer cleanup day for Madison. And you can sign up at ddc@rosenet.org. Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce is holding 2 information sessions for members and non-members to speak on the benefits of membership. The first session is Tuesday, March 24 at 6 p.m. at Rocco's Bar and Grill. The second session is April 1st, 8:30 a.m. at Rocco's Bar and Grill. Then the Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring Easter Fun Fest on Saturday, March 28th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. in downtown Madison. The Chamber is also hosting its first Home Show Expo on Saturday, April 25th. And applications for participation went out Monday. So they're gathering different organizations in town that offer home improvement, landscaping, paving, that sort of thing. They can show what they have to offer residents of Madison at this April 25th program. And also, the first Home Expo ad will appear in the home style section of the Madison Eagle on March 26th, so that'll explain more. Then the Merchant of the Month from the Chamber of Commerce is Investors Bank. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Safety, Mr. Catanello.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So February was an active month for the police department. I'm going to briefly touch on some of the many things that they did. So the police department responded to almost 2,500 calls for service in February. Just a portion of the calls that were handled by Madison officers include 45 motor vehicle crashes, 252 motor vehicle stops, 185 summonses were issued, 19 arrests were made, and 100 radar posts were conducted. They also handled 107 alarm activations, conducted almost 1,000 premise checks, including daytime school checks, business checks, housing checks, critical infrastructure, and train station checks. They investigated 11 abandoned 911 calls, checked on the welfare of 23 citizens, assisted citizens 27 times, conducted motor vehicle or home lockout 15 times, and assisted disabled motorists 16 times. They conducted 11 DARE classes, investigated numerous complaints, including helping to respond to 39 utility complaints, 14 gas leaks, and 3 unattended deaths. In February, there was some crime, unfortunately. 6 suspicious occurrences were investigated, 11 suspicious motor vehicles and 4 suspicious persons. Madison officers also investigated 12 acts of domestic violence, 5 thefts, 4 harassment complaints, 3 frauds, 2 sexual assaults, 2 shoplifting, 1 vehicle theft, several other sundry violations. Madison officers made 19 arrests during the month, 5 on warrants, 5 for CDS, 3 criminal mischief, 2 DWIs, 2 shoplifting, 1 aggravated assault, 1 simple assault. Variety of officers attended training classes, and notable occurrences include that 5 new officers were sworn in on February 9th, 2015. Patrolman Burns graduated from the Police Academy. All 6 new officers commenced the field training program. The 2015 police budget was presented. Per diem dispatcher Mastro completed his training program, and we took delivery of a traffic division vehicle from the 2014 budget. On the other hand, there wasn't much going on the past 2 weeks in the fire department, so I'm happy to say that we have nothing to report there. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Utilities, Ms. Vitale.
Thank you, Mayor. From the electric department, they had to install 1 section of new secondary cable at 7 Oaks Court. They have continued snow removal at all the at both substations, which is very important. Street lights repairs and repaired the flagpole light on Kings Road and Green Avenue. From the water department, everybody knows what the water department does. I mean, under normal circumstance, they're replacing meters, they're doing markouts for homeowners, contractors, et cetera. But in the interim, what they also do is they assist the road department with snow plowing. They also have to keep all the wells and the treatment plants, clear of ice and snow. There was a broken fire hydrant damaged by a motor vehicle during one of the storms. They also repaired water service on Hoyt Street. There was a shut-off water for a main break at Madison Commons. And then they had to find a possible main leak on Carrigan Lane due to icing conditions that appeared to be surface water. We did have treatment plant heater malfunction during the cold time, so a new one is on order. And there was a problem with well A treatment, so there's been a company that's been called out to do that job. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Finance Borough Clerk, Mr. Landrigan.
AMI report will come during the budget introduction. Thank you.
Health, Mr. Wolkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In 2014, the Municipal Alliance of the Chathams and the Madison Alliance Addressing Substance Abuse were awarded a Drug-Free Communities mentoring grant through the Morris County organization called Prevention is Key. The primary purpose of this program is to establish and strengthen collaboration among community entities and reduce substance abuse among youth. The coordinator of the Madison Chatham Coalition is Lisbeth Bringard, who I had the pleasure of meeting and seems to be quite a capable person, and of assessing and identifying problems in the Chathams and Madison and building a coalition of representatives of the 12 sectors that have been identified as key across our community. Anyone interested in learning more about this or actively participating in the coalition, please contact the Health Department. Moving on, the first retail food establishment food handler course for 2015 will be held on Monday, March 16th at the Sarah Bailey Civic Center in Springfield. 2 classes will be offered, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Anyone interested in registering and attending, again, please contact the Health Department. And then finally, I'd like to mention that the Madison Health Department's in the process of finalizing its clinic schedules for this year. Programs will include complete metabolic panel blood tests, women's and men's cancer screenings. Other clinics to be scheduled on an as-needed basis. Please visit the Health Department's website, which is on the RoseNet website, for further details. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works and Engineering, Mr. Rowe.
Just one update, Mr. Mayor. The road crew is out testing a new method for patching our numerous potholes with a piece of equipment we have in the capital budget for this year, a hot box. It will allow us to provide a more permanent fix on our current method of cold patching our potholes. Thank you very much.
It's good news as we are into the 5th season of the year, pothole season, all over the state. Okay, Cap Bank Ordinance. I call up Ordinance 9, 2015 for first reading. Ask the Borough Clerk to read said ordinance by title.
Calendar year 2015 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish Cap Bank in accordance with NJSA 40A:4-45.14.
Mayor, I move ordinance 9-2015.
I second it.
Robert or Dave, you want to have a quick explanation for the audience as to why we do this, even though we are proposing a budget that's below the cap? Thank you.
The reason would be to increase our flexibility on the spending side should we need it. Quite simple.
So it's just a safety valve in a way.
Yes.
Thank you. I could have said that myself, but I figured I'd call you. I just want to see in your retirement year if you can still do it. You still have it. So, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay, budget introduction. May I have the statement by the Borough Clerk?
Okay, upon introduction and adoption, the 2015 budget and tax resolution will be published by summary in the Madison Eagle on March 26, 2015, with a public hearing date set for April the 13th, 2015, at 8 o'clock in the council chambers of the Hartley Dodge Memorial, 50 Kings Road, at which time and place all interested individuals will have an opportunity to be heard, and there will be consideration for the final adoption. A copy of the budget is introduced will be filed with the Madison Public Library and the County Library for public review. It's also on the Borough website and, of course, in the Borough Clerk's office.
We call it Resolution 85, 2015, which is a resolution of the Borough of Madison adopting the 2015 budget and tax resolution.
Mayor, I move Resolution 85-2015.
I second it.
Council discussion, and then I'll call up our auditors too for comments, but any council discussion, we'll starting with our
Yeah.
chair.
Sure. I have a little statement I want to just read here. All right. The budget that will be presented tonight is one that the Borough of Madison can be proud of. It's a well-thought-out budget, and it's an honest budget, one that is sustainable and realistic. It's a result of hours of work by Rake, Jim Burnett, Robert Califoot, the department heads, and the strategic planning committees. And at this point, I'd like to give a special thanks to Ben Wolkowitz. He was a driving force between the strategic planning committees that worked tirelessly this year, and he was a great source of knowledge and insight this year as well. In regards to the strategic planning committees, their work was invaluable and they were heard. As I said before, this budget meets many of their guidelines and moves toward many of their others. Their guidelines will continue to be evaluated and evolve. And what you see behind me and what we have here is an example of what we've heard. This was a suggestion brought out by Maureen Burns' Operations and Communications Committee. The suggestion was that we mail something like this out to the residents, and that will happen. This is a draft. If any council members or any members of the public have comments, please let me know. We've heard the committees, and we want to abide by what they've said. Now, in addition to the input from the administration and the strategic planning committees, this budget was built around feedback from the residents. As public servants, we are duty-bound to listen to them. Now, while campaigning last year, there was a common thread that we heard. The residents wanted their property taxes either kept in check or lowered. They wanted their roads and sidewalks fixed. They wanted their infrastructure maintained. They wanted their services maintained and electric rates lowered. Now, is it realistic to think you're going to get everything in 1 year? No. You know, there's an old saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too. However, we now have a framework in place that can achieve this. Specifically, the budget this year calls for the following: a modest increase of 1.5% in the real estate taxes. That's municipal budget. It was important for us to keep this low as possible given the recent revaluation and the fact that a property tax increase 1 year has a compounding effect year after year. And that effect is on a resident's property tax liability. So a 2% increase this year, if you do it again next year, it's 2% on top of 2%. Additionally, we felt it was our responsibility to keep our increase as low as possible because we still don't know what's going to happen with the school taxes as well as the county. And this 1.5% tax increase represents a $27 increase for the average homeowner whose house is assessed at approximately $670,000, $27 a year increase. Now, what is most noteworthy is what has been accomplished with this minimal increase. Excuse me, I'm getting a cold. We are maintaining all borough services. The services provided by Madison excel when compared to other towns. We are investing $3 million in our capital program that will address our roads, sidewalks, and infrastructure. We continue to recognize the importance of public safety as we are adding police and fire personnel. We are investing in new equipment, and we have again funded the targeted electric rebate program for eligible residents that last year resulted in almost an 11% decrease in their electric bills. What I've noted so far are visible. What is of equal note is the following. The $3 million investment in our capital program is a result of our electric surplus. Last year, we leveraged off of the sale of borough property and fund balance, which totaled about $1.8 million. We didn't have it this year. We are no longer funding capital improvements with non-recurring revenue like property sales and borrowed funds. $3 million is allocated for general capital, $200,000 for water projects, $400,000 for electric projects, plus approximately $500,000 of capital items in the various department budgets. We also have $1 million in reserve for the automated meter reading project. The borough is now catching up on deferred capital funding and programs. To quote the Budget Committee, our surplus is now at a prudent level in terms of an absolute amount and cushion. Referring back to something Jim Burnett and others have said, you cannot keep draining out more than what you put in. We are no longer doing that. The budget addresses rating agency requirements as we want to keep and maintain our AAA rating. Remember, a few years ago, we were put on a watch list as for a possible downgrade. We are now AAA, and we are only one of 19 towns out of 565 towns in the state of New Jersey who have this rating. We are in a position to deal with unforeseen circumstances like Hurricane Sandy. We didn't have to bond for repairs to the town. This budget is approximately $6.3 million under the state levy cap. This budget is $1.5 million under the state spending cap. What this means is that we are taxing significantly less and spending significantly less than what the state would allow. We met 10 criteria set by the state for a well-run communities, which allows us to self-examine our budget with state waiving jurisdiction. Salaries and wages remain flat over the last 7 years. Health costs are down because of unemployee contributions. Is there work to be done? Yes, there still is a lot of work to be done. We will look at the manner in which revenues, expenses, and the budget is presented. That's been heard. Moving forward, more forward planning will take place on the parts of the utilities. But I want everybody to keep one thing in mind. Throughout the economic downturn that began in 2008 and lasted a few years, and years of successive storms, our utilities have outperformed most others and deserve recognition for doing so. Before turning this over to discussion, I just have a few thoughts. I want to take some quotes out of the Budget Strategic Planning Committee's document. First, the annual budget provides services and support services desired by the residents and what is affordable. It does. $3 million plus in the capital improvement fund should be used as a placeholder. We have done that. Guidelines constitute a firm but flexible rubric to guide the annual budget preparation, protect long-term financial health of the borough, balance spending changes with revenue adjustments and vice versa, and flag deviations for review. They do that. And we may need or want to develop new revenue streams. The borough has been and still is. The redevelopment of the former Green Village Road School property and 40 vacant acres of Geraldo Farms now on the drawing board. The budget needs to be sustainable. It is now. This is a good news budget and is built upon the principles of sustainability and long-range planning and forecasting. In my opinion, it deserves a unanimous vote. And as a personal comment, I again want to thank the citizen volunteers in this town who took part in the strategic planning committees for their hard work, and to the members of council who listened and are adopting a lot of what they've said. Thank you to all.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, Dave and our auditing team? Yes. Yes, sorry.
And I just want to I don't want to go through all the transactions and everything that Council Lenegren went through, but I just want to say that a few things. This budget is a good indicator of, our review is a good indicator of how well the borough is run. The moderate changes within this budget, the tax assessments are relatively stable, and you had a slight increase, so that's why the rates can actually stay flat and relatively flat. They have put together a very prudent financial document. We are truly millions below the cap, spending cap, the tax levy cap, and the appropriation caps that the state has instituted. Fantastic with all the budgets going on. We also see there's absolutely no reason why you can't expect the same type of budget document to be able to be rebuilt again in 2016. You haven't set yourself up for any kind of future failure. And all this is all done at the same time without canceling any services, not changing any structures, and still providing top-notch to your residents. Like we always say, one of the other things is the hearing is set for the 13th, and, we encourage everyone to come and speak there at the public hearing.
Any questions?
Questions that we can answer?
Pat?
Sorry, could you identify yourself?
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm Valerie Dolan from Nissabatia, sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's a good question.
That's a very good question, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you.
And that's our auditor,
That's
so,
on the auditor.
thank you, Valerie.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Calanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Miss Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Any communications or petitions?
None received, Mayor.
And this is now our first of two invitations for the public discussion. This is, you may comment on anything on our agenda discussion, which is under section 13, or resolutions that are listed on the consent agenda. There'll be a time a little bit later when you may comment on other things. Our agenda discussions tonight include appropriation of $12,000 for reforestation improvements at the MRC, appropriation of $110,000 from open space also for restoration and repair of James Library Building, amending Chapter 15 of the Borough Code, Downtown Development Commission to include a MACA member, representative, and again, any resolution. So if you want to comment on any of those three agenda items or resolution, please step up to the lectern, state your name, your address, and the agenda item you're commenting on, and then keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Is anyone wishing to comment? I could have saved 3 minutes by, oh, I'm sorry, Martin.
Martin Barbados, 6 Arlena Court. The comments are really as to here. Is this in draft form that it could be?
Yes, it is. It is in draft form.
Okay, all right, good. So just a couple comments on one specific area. The paragraph about reliability, short, happy to work with whoever on it. Two are questions. I know you don't do back and forth, but I'll leave the questions with you to answer. First is when it says it's been adopted, has it been adopted by ordinance? Is that what it means? And number two, is there a plan to put it on the website so that people can see the results in a dynamic manner?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the more factual thing I'm concerned about is the quote. The quote doesn't ring true, or as I recall it, and that may just be my failing memory on it. But I recall what we had done, and we had taken two indices. One was the Electric Engineers Institute, and compared to that, and the other one was actually designing indices. We were grading them. And we were trying to present a structure to the town to be used in a dynamic, ongoing basis, not to come in and evaluate and conclude, yes, we've finished, we've crossed the finish line, and we have better reliability. That's the line that struck me as not quite where we were, or what we concluded. We did not have reliability information on the individual suppliers of New Jersey, and we encouraged the council to encourage the utility to go fetch that information so we can really be more factual. The closest we had was compared to the domestic North American market, which was the electric engineers, and it was close to an apple, but not quite an apple. So, long story short, what I don't want to do is inadvertently mislead people into what the committee said and concluded. It was really more about recommending an approach for measuring reliability rather than saying where we are in the context of reliability relative to others. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. And Jim is the crafter of this document, so I think he captured some of that, but please reach out to him so we can get it right. Yeah.
I will. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we go on to agenda discussions. Oh, Tom, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure whether this is appropriate for the budget, because I'm just trying to understand your comments, what we could comment on, being prospective as opposed to retrospective.
So what you can comment on are the three agenda items and resolutions, which, since we one of the resolutions is the introduction of the budget. It opens the door up to comment on the budget.
Okay, good, good. Thomas Bintinger, 20 Rolling Hill Court. I am currently serving as a member of the Strategic Planning Committee on the budget, and I think I would, as on behalf of the committee, compliment the administration and the council in reflecting the reporting on the proposed budget for 2015 of the guidelines, which we are recommending in our report, and including the alternative budget format as a reporting methodology. And more than that, we appreciate Councilman Landrigan's recognition and appreciation. I think we had a good time in discussing, and I'm sure the other committees did as well. Just to reflect again, these guidelines are intended to provide an ongoing guidance to the council and administration for the development of the budget for the long term. We propose that these guides be used to provide metrics for the performance of the budget, to drive consistency of measurement, and request that the council and administration disclose material deviations, provide rationales such that they will gauge the future budgets to understand why deviations occurred. We recommend that the guidelines be those that are recommended in our report or those that are refined based on needs and experience, be adopted on a formal basis to ensure their consistent use. As to the method of adoption, I'll leave that up to you. The 2015 budget did include several deviations, which we think might provide a discussion mechanism for those deviations to be explained. Without attempting to describe them as favorable or unfavorable, these include the municipal surplus. At December 31, it amounts to 26.8% of the succeeding year's budget. And it exceeds the projected or the suggested guideline of 25%, or putting that in dollar terms, approximately $500,000. As the guidelines suggested, such excess should be considered for dedication to capital improvement needs or debt service. So, a lot of discussion at the committee level for the range established there and suggested. So when it exceeded by more than a few tenths, at least we would suggest that that is appropriate for discussion for a particular purpose. Secondly, the operating revenue shortfall, as disclosed in the alternative budget format, is $1,536,000, or 5.3%, which is less than the suggested guideline of 7 to 9%. I would assume that happens to be a favorable one, so I will add the adjective there. Whether this is the result of tightened expenditures, operational improvements, needs some analysis, and will it be supported in the future? As the committee finalizes its report, we will be reviewing guidelines such as this from 2015 as to whether we would recommend a change. Thirdly, and probably most importantly, the utility transfers account for 23.2% of the total budget needs, driven by the need to support the capital needs of the borough. It exceeds the recommended range of 17 to 20%. Whether the increase is driven by shortfall in fundings in past years, or whether it's driven by prospective needs in the future, needs to be addressed, or whether it is going to be a continuing financial support required in the future, which will impact the utility financials. As I said, we would like to compliment you, the council, and the administration on the use of the guidelines, and strongly encourage a formal adoption, so that it will aid taxpayers in understanding the budget and to aid future councils. As we said in presenting our report, the annual budget is but one step in the execution of a long-term plan. To paraphrase the poet, no one budget is an island. They establish a culture and provide for a solid foundation for long-term outcome. I have some personal observations on the thing, which has not, we've discussed these issues at the committee level, but have not formally concluded on them. The first and foremost is establishing a long-term strategy for the utilities to achieve, among other things, a capital improvement plan which provides a consistent funding of their needs in a proactive rather than in a reactive manner. In my mind, the current budget does not reflect that. A long-term plan is necessary to ensure the needs are not kicked down the road at the expense of the future, but are provided on a rational, systematic basis to allow the proper determination of, in my word, dividend support to the borough budget. Secondly, to report to the taxpayers a financial picture of all the operations of the borough. One of the things we talked about in presentation and format, the utilities are a significant business. And to ask, I think, our taxpayers, what's the size, what do they do, what are the implications, it's just not visible. And it needs to rise to the same kind of discussion, I think, that we have here. And there's a lot of discussion that could be occurred in that particular area. Thirdly, the conclusion and rationale for long-term capital improvement needs and funding. Some of these assets are 20 to 30 years in life, and the need to understand the replacements or their repair and maintenance, how they are to be funded. The alternative budget format is an attempt to highlight the interrelationships of utility support and capital improvement needs. In our deliberations, those were the two things that dragged and caused the most discussion.
I'm giving you a little more than your budget, 3.5 minutes, just so.
I appreciate that. I think one of the things we talked about, using accounting terms that the auditors have left, the understanding of cost of services provided on a functional basis, which is what do they do, as opposed to what is the expense we're incurring, needs to be portrayed so that people clearly understand what is the cost of the services we are providing. Thank you for your patience. I apologize for the excess.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful comments there, Tom. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to be heard? All right, seeing none, now we move on to agenda discussions. Number one, appropriation of $12,000 for reforestation improvements to the MRC. Austri?
Right, thank you, Mayor. The MRC Passive Advisory Committee is, encouraging the completion of the trail system. And the Madison Environmental Commission is requesting funding to reforest the understory of the wetlands and design a conservation management plan to design and implement the reforestation. And so this project will help our natural resources, including our water supplies, and enhance passive recreation expansion. So Steve Stocker is here tonight to make this presentation. He made it to the Open Space Committee. The Open Space Advisory Committee unanimously approved that this go to council, and they're recommending that we fund the $12,000. It's in the enclosed area of the trail system at the MRC. So Stephen?
Stephen?
Stephen Stocker, Park Avenue. Project that we are working on, it's the Madison Wetland Restoration, Passive Recreation, and Educational Area. The area in question is outlined in white. It is on the right-hand side of the access road as you enter the property. It takes approximately 20 acres of land. The grant that I'm requesting, the $12,000, is asking specifically for two things. It's asking for a conservation management plan that will cover 4 sections. A soil survey looking at the hydrology and how nutrients flow through the soil, how the water flows through the soil. It will also search out any archaeological significant pieces that may be there. There are a couple of foundations we're not sure are. There's some drainage tiles that have been set up. We're not sure where they came from or where they went. They'll have to be searched out. Baseline surveys and identification of the animals that are actually there now, and with counts, so that we can see that our reforestation area efforts are actually improving and supporting more of that wildlife. We'll do studies and now analyze what is actually growing there that is native, what's invasive, and inventory all of that, recommending native plantings and where to actually put them. You just can't drop an oak tree in the middle of the wetlands. It won't survive the amount of water that it would have there. So certain trees can survive in excess water, and others need more dry soil to flourish. And another part of that will be to design the habitat that would attract birds, small mammals to actually live there permanently rather than wandering through our neighborhoods. They would kind of all come into that area. And it would delineate the goals and priorities that have to be addressed down the road over the next 4 to 5 years until this project actually sustains itself by its continual regrowth and ability to fight off the invasive species of rosiflora and barberry and stuff like that that is now present on the property. The second part of the grant is to have the New Jersey Tree Foundation plant 130 trees, 300 plants, 100 fern plugs, and 70 shrubs. They will do that for the $9,000, and this is the start of actual planned understory regrowth that will feed and attract the various species that we wish to bring in to include birds and insects and all. This is in addition to 500 trees that the Friends of Shade Tree are going to be putting in on April 20th, 25 red buds that came from the Garden Club last spring, and 25 red oaks that came from the Parks Commission. So we're already well into laying out the story of trees. Most of these were taken from the tree farm that we have at the community garden and brought over, so they were 3 or 4 years old at the time, which gives them a jump on the bare root trees that will be going in on April 20th, because they'll only be 2 years old. They'll just be little tiny slips. The trees that went in this past spring, they were a good size. And basically, that is it for the grant. This slide here is just to show last year you guys awarded expenditures after I was done. Fence went up with working gates and everything for $15,750, and the funds returned to the open space fund was $9,000. I actually saved some money by negotiating a good fence. That's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Rob, and then Ben?
So, what are you going to do about the non-flowering pear trees that grow like triffids in that 20 acres?
Triffids,
Yeah, remember the day of the triffids? Yeah. They kind of look like them if you know.
They're coming down.
So, who's going to do that?
The Parks Commission and myself, last year we received a grant from
Right.
NJEC
Right.
to remove invasive species from the entire.
So you're going to get rid of all of them, even over on the other side of the
It's
street
gonna
by
take
the.
a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The entire 49 acres, wherever it is in Bradbury Pear, we will eventually get to cut it down. Right now, I'm basically concerned with the fenced-in area, because that's where all the planting efforts it'd be crazy to put a sapling in, a seedling in, and then have it get no sun because it was, shaded by barberry that was 12 feet tall. I'd rather a 12-foot tall blueberry bush be there.
Ben?
Yes, on the 12,000 you're asking for, 9,000 goes for the trees.
For the planting, for
The
the
planting.
shrubs, the ferns,
Right.
yes,
And the 3,000 goes for the,
conservation management plan.
and who is doing that?
Right now, I'm talking with B&R Environmental. Talked with him last year and vetted him with two other environmental companies, and they all said that he was giving me good product for my money.
What does the B&R stand for, do you know?
It's his name, Blaine Rothhauser.
Yeah, okay, he was a good guy. I thought that was the case, but I just asked.
Now working with, let me see, GZA Geo Environmental Incorporated. He's now
I see.
project manager.
Any other questions or comments? Austri?
I just, Stephen, you might check with the Land Conservancy of New Jersey, too, to see what
Yes,
they could
we
offer
did
in terms of
discuss that.
conservation.
I haven't heard from her yet.
Haven't, okay, because she
I
said.
thought you had said you were gonna have us.
Yeah, I thought she had reached out to you already. I will make sure she
I haven't
does.
received anything.
Okay, then she may have gotten your email wrong. Okay, thank you. And, is there any maintenance that has to be done?
We don't plan on any maintenance for quite a few number of reasons. There's nothing really growing there on the interior right now, and the leaf litter is 3 to 4 inches deep. That's, anybody that does any gardening, there's very few weeds coming through all of that. My survey, not that I am the best identifier of weeds, was that there's very little coming in on the edges of something like mustard grass, mustard garlic, if you know what I'm talking about. There's a small stand of knotweed that was knocked down last year by Parks Commission, and we'll spray that again this year and hopefully actually kill that off. This year, the barberry removal has cleared 5 acres of barberry and multiflora rosa, and as soon as this warm weather sets in and the snow melts a little more, we intend to clear another 5 acres, so we'll have half of the interior totally clear of barberry, rosa flora from the start. I think we've removed all the invasive pear trees that are within the 20 acres, but we'll know better when they leaf out and see them, but we're ahead on that project.
Any other comments or questions? Well, Stephen, thank you for not only your hard work, but your passion for making this happen.
I could go on, but...
That's all right. We'll go,
leaving.
Museum of Early Trades and Crafts, and the committee, this is the second part of a multi-year project between the borough and the museum, and our Open Space Trust Fund will leverage dollars from the County Historic Preservation Trust Fund. And we have here tonight people from the museum to give you an overview of the project. So, Tom, you want to go ahead and... Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, I do.
Double-sided.
My name is Thomas Judd. I'm the chairman of the Board of Trustees at the museum. As Astrid said, this is part 2 of a multi-year project that we've started last year. Here we were in October. It's called Leaves, and maybe we'll see it again. Nice. This was kind of the beginning. The scaffolding is up, and the work was beginning. This gives an indication. Let me step over to the side here a little more. I'm sorry, I'm not blocking you.
No problem. No worries.
This was prepared 2 years ago when we undertook an intensive study of the building. And what they did was tell us where the really bad stuff was and where the stuff was that could wait a little bit. Things in purple are the bad stuff. If you looking at the north elevation of the building, we'll be standing basically in James Park and looking toward Green Village Road. The reason these are in such bad shape is that they were very wet. As you can imagine, on the north side there's no sun, and so that was a real problem. The areas here, here a chimney, and along these edges and the downspouts I'll mention are things that we have attacked this year. Tower is coming up in 2015. When I say this year, I mean 2014. And the tower is coming up in 2015. Now, call your attention to on the top there. That's a problem that we really have to take a look at. Here's a view from the other side of the building. This would be standing on Green Village Road looking toward the building. Whoops, I got the wrong. Again, the purple areas, these were taken care of in chimney. I'll mention what some of these things are. The tower is a 2015 project, and as the drainage in the conservatory is a 2015. For the first year, which was last year basically, we focused on mitigating moisture ingress issues causing building deterioration, and the deterioration was rather startling in some places. I'm going to show you some photos. The building looks nice from the street, but when you get the experts in there taking a look, they're gone on since the day it was built, and basically. Work is now about 95% complete. It should have been finished. We ran into the weather. Can't put a roofer up on an ice-coated slate roof. Finally getting our week of 40-degree temperature, which is what the architect says we need. A little bit of roof work to be done, some decorative elements to be put in place, and then the final inspections by the borough inspector. We did, you'll hear this term again, rake out and repoint exterior stone wall. What that means basically is you go in with a diamond saw, you cut off the old mortar, and you replace it with proper new mortar. It's actually determined by scientific study, both chemical and microscopic. Two lead caps at the gable parapet wall. What that means is at the top of each wall there are a series of blocks. Mortar in between. Well, the mortar is vertical. Water, and soaks the water. What we've done is, after replacing that mortar, we put lead caps in each of those. Very small, they're made, custom made. You hardly notice them, but they will. Place the gutters, downspouts, and counterflashing all around the roof. Gutters, it turned out the gutters were not original to the building. Somewhat undersized, and they were very poorly hung. So overflowed, the water flowed into the building instead of over outside. fabricated new ones that look very much like the old ones. Amazing, some of these. They've now been hung in a proper way and they're proper. Cleaned out the exterior drains, and at either end of the building, there are window wells that were intended to let some water in. I misspoke because they let water in to the basement areas of the building. One on the front side was badly blocked. You may remember there was a really ugly roof over there. The drain wasn't working. We tried. Now the drain has been cleared. The new grate has been put in. What we do have to do is put in some kind of screening to help keep leaves out. North end of the building, there's a bigger problem. Okay. On the north end of the building, there's a bigger problem in that when we got down and cleared the mud and leaves out of the drain, there's nothing there. There must have been at some time. But right now, the pipe goes down perhaps 2 feet, and then there's just nothing. This is going to be a major problem because we think it's too far down to achieve gravity drainage into the stormwater. Probably going to have to be some kind of a sump with a pump put in. Got to fix that because it's draining into. I'll show you some pictures here. The real shocker was these badly rotted rafters that we found. Until you see the picture. Then we've gone all around the edge of the roof, pulled up slates for about 3 feet, installed a new rubber ice barrier, the ice dam, which is now required buildings. Was never there, of course, 115 years ago. So that's been done. The roof itself is a few. Here's what I mean by badly rotted rafters. All along here, if you look in the back, here's what a rafter should look like. It should come down to this weight-bearing wall. Rather remarkable considering the amount of snow we had last year. Years ago, someone had put concrete in between each, thinking, I guess, that would help block. What it did was make a nice little swimming pool for each individual rafter. That with its foot in water constantly, and you can see what happened. Another view of a rafter, you can see what was left. The concrete has all been removed here. This was all filled in when we got under. Fortunately, the damage was not farther up. Structural engineer engineered a solution which entailed sistering water-resistant beams on each, fastening everything with stainless steel fasteners. Didn't have to completely tear the roof off and redo the safe, and the engineers said. Now we're coming up to what we're calling the second year of the project. We're going to focus on the tower, as I mentioned earlier, roof and drainage of the conservatory. The conservatory was put on 16, 17 years ago when we did the building to allow us to put in an elevator and be ADA compliant for the ground level. It's a beautiful piece of architecture and looks very nice. Unfortunately, the water drainage was poorly engineered. We've had problems because of that, so we're going to have to do something about that. Again, Rake and Repoint, in this case, the walls of the tower. We're going to have to do the same on the interior because of the years of moisture infusion there. A lot of the bricks are actually rotting away. The mortar is just falling out, so we have to do both inside and outside in the tower. Store and repair decorative limestone and terracotta details Up on the top, all around, some of the things that make that building so beautiful are the details, the gargoyles, the terracotta features. A lot of those, after 115 years, need a little. Tower finials, I mentioned, I'm going to show you some pictures of that. This is the scary project for 2015. Observatory gutters and downspouts, I mentioned, we have to get proper size. We have to get proper drainage. What's happened, the water has come down and rotted away the relatively new conservatory doors. Copper sheaths with their wooden core, and the wooden core on one of them is rotted away about this far, opening going in. Nice mouse door, among other things. Got to fix those. Place the roof above the conservatory and the main entrances. In both cases, there's a small flat roof. Once again, wasn't really properly done, and in some cases it has simply deteriorated. Got to fix that. That's been causing significant problem, particularly over the front entrance. Up above in the arches, you'll see we're patching. Water was coming down, breaking off, and chunks of stone were falling right down on our entrance. Got to get that fixed. And I mentioned this below-grade drainage on the north side. We have to do something there. Clear exactly what at this point. Here are these tower finials. Architect has a drone, Howie. Howie flew around. We got some pictures. I've shown you a crack here. Other side of the same area, there's a severe crack here. We have the situation that these very large and very heavy objects, cracked bases. Structural engineer has said this is clearly at the point where if we can't get it fixed really soon, occupancy of that building. Here's what we're preserving. We're suggesting we asked for $110,000. Last year we asked for $125,000, which you gave us. Understand that funds were tighter this year. We had a project that could be scaled back a bit than that. Asked for. Construction budget on the contractor is projecting at $345. Professional services, we hire historic building architects to actually manage the construction project. Very successful. And we've asked the county for a grant of $292,000. The county has a limit of roughly $300,000 per year. You have to start with that and kind of work on it and see that amount of money. Federal funds, as I said, we asked for $110,000. We are required to match this county grant at 20%, which is $73,000. 4-to-1 leverage on every dollar we get. Fortunately, there's some other things that have to be done. Preparing drawings, we have to prepare the specs for bidding and negotiate. Hire the architect to do that, but that requires money up front that the county will not pay for. And then we have discovered that even though we have professionals managing the construction, the load on our museum staff was unexpectedly heavy. Times our executive director has reported as much as 1/3 of her time. Managing the funds from the county is a very complex. It requires somebody, so asking for a little help figuring 22 weeks of a part-time person. Manage that and to keep a tighter control over the budget. We did it okay this year. We didn't lose track of anything we can account for. That's where the 110,000 came from that we've asked. By saying, looking ahead, this is year 2. Of course, it gets very speculative going forward. What we've projected is, as I said, told you what we did last year, told you what we were planning to do this year. 17, there are a lot of exterior stone walls to go. That will be pretty much this Rake out and Repoint. And the big thing is that slate roof is now 117 years old. Good shape considering how long it's been up there. We did replace a few slates this year. That really needs to be done. That's such a large job that it'll probably have to be done in. This is what we're looking at. Based on about $360,000 a year, we're looking at a little over $2 million. So that's the story we have. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you very much. It was very detailed. So right now you're saying the project for this year is going to cost about $402,000. That's the our 110 plus the county's 292. Yeah, because it was hard to tell what was revenue and what was expenses, but okay. I guess the second more important question is, a couple years ago, I was not on council, but I saw the presentation. Originally, this was, I think, a 4-stage process, and it was averaging $125,000 to $140,000 a year from the open space fund to cover this. Now you're saying it's looking more like 6 years, 1 year's behind us. You're asking for 110 this year, then there's 4 more years beyond that. Do you guys have an estimate for the 16, 17, 18, and 19 years, what your ask of the open space fund is going to be? Because I'd like them to start to budget that in their out-year project list if we're assuming that we're going to continue to fund this.
I think the only thing I can say at this point is it'll be somewhere between.
Okay.
We would love to get the 125. We certainly can use it.
And then the last question is, again, I think the council originally gave the money for 2014 2 years ago. It took almost a year and a half, 2 years to complete the first phase. Are you optimistic that you're going to be able to do these 1 year at a time going forward also?
I think we're in much better shape now.
Okay.
From what we've learned a lot. In the first year, there were some mistakes made. The estimator made some very serious. But when it came to going for bids, we were way out of the ballpark in the amount of money. Spent a lot of time renegotiating. We didn't start till September. Get it done in the summer, not run into this winter weather. And with extra people managing it, the whole project a whole lot better now. I think we're okay in 1 year. We don't want this spilling over every year.
Bob? And
You
then Rob
mentioned
next.
something before which gave me a little pause for concern, and that was whether the county will continue this program. Now, there's no question in my mind that I want this building to be done, and it needs to be preserved. Is there any level of guarantee going forward that you'll get this money from the county? Because I know the state's in dire straits right now, and that will have a ripple-down effect, I'm pretty sure, to the counties and the municipalities. A, do you feel pretty confident you're going to get this money going out through 2019? And B, what would happen if this money was to dry up in midstream?
I could respond to that.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
If the County Historic Preservation Trust Fund If the freeholders said, we're not going to fund it anymore, I think it would have to go back to a referendum to the public, the county. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
It's, the freeholders have a referendum that they passed. They have reduced the percentage based on the growth of the tax rate, as we've known over the last couple of years. But it's very well funded, and that's the reason they've reduced the tax rate, because it's got so much money in it. And it does self-generate, similar to your open space trust fund.
And it's independent of the state, though.
Yeah,
It is independent. It's for the counties. It was done by referendum, I think back in like 91 or 92.
Okay, so you answered my question, so the likelihood of getting this money is pretty good going forward. Okay, good, thank you.
In addition, I might say that we have a very good relationship with the county, with the people doing it. In fact, they've used some of what we have done as examples for other organizations. They think we've done something. We're going at it both ways. We're hoping, as was said, that the county money is going to keep coming, and we're working very hard to make sure that we are considered when it comes to getting it. And so far, we've done that. They've been very open. They understand the process. They understand what we're doing.
Thank you. That's right.
Rob?
Thank you. So, it looks like 20% of your ask is for staffing. Do you envision a time in the future, if the cash flow for the museum changes, where you would no longer ask us to fund staffing? Number one. And number two, the previous administrator, when she made her presentation, talked about the private fundraising, and I know we talked about it briefly, but can you just kind of give me an idea of what kind of goals you're thinking about for the private fundraising for this project? And in terms of, if you need $2.2 million, let's say roughly, how much are you hoping to raise privately? And will you continue to ask us to cover staffing if, in fact, the situation changes for the museum?
I would say the staffing may be flexible from our standpoint. It is something that it's directly related to the building, but do anticipate that the fortunes of the museum will get better in the next few years, so we may be able to absorb some of that. The rest of it, I still feel very strongly that the maintenance of the building itself is a museum and borough partnership. I think we have a structure that's working pretty well to the benefit of both of us, if we can getting out. Originally, you're referring to Vivian James probably 3 years ago.
Well, I think it was, it's roughly 2.5 years, just about the private fundraising and what sort of a goal you would set for that.
At that time, we thought that we were going to have another private campaign like was done 17 years ago or so. We then found that between the county and what the borough had, a much more stable and predictable source of funding for the building. What we're going to concentrate on is doing the parts of the building maintenance that are called for in our lease. Basically the small stuff. We do have a James Library Building Fund that was called for in the lease. There's not much money in it right now. We've had some tough times. So we're going to concentrate on that. In fact, we have commissioned a consulting firm named Rutolo Associates to help us begin understanding the parameters of a private campaign. Will be aimed at our end of the bargain on maintaining the building. So the things under $5,000, up to $10,000 a year that the budget calls for, or that they're called to handle, we should be able to do. We've had some cases now when we simply couldn't do it, and we've had to asking for help with things like when the furnace quits, something has to be done, and we just haven't. Our concentration is going to be on making sure we can fully uphold our part of the bargain in the lease.
So I understand correctly then. So there is no private fundraising for this campaign then?
Not for this campaign.
And
Not
you anticipate
using
using
structure that's working so well, we can concentrate on other things.
Okay. And the private fundraising you would envision doing would be to cover routine maintenance. And so as opposed to taking that out of whatever cash flow you happen to generate through your operations, you would use private fundraising for that?
That would be the hope. We're still working with Rotolo to have them come back and tell us, is this a reasonable thing? And what we did, we gave them a list of people in the community that we thought might be interested in the position to give us help. We're going to go out and actually talk to them one-on-one and see, does this sound reasonable? This is the plan.
Austri?
Yes, my understanding is too, that project with Rotolo has been somewhat delayed because of all the changes and the loss of the director. I mean, you would have had this on board, I think, a year ago. If
should have been done at least a year ago. It was a combination of a change of director and a change in the way we saw we could fund this building job. Instead of waiting another 2 or 3 years and hoping the building didn't fall down, we were able to start it last year. So that was when we realized, rather than what was a bit of a pipe dream for us 2 years ago, being able to raise $1 million or $2 million, we now can see a way of getting this critical job done. At the same time, start building up the museum. Better partner to the borough in the day-to-day maintenance of the building. And believe me, old building, things are always breaking.
Martin, you're representing the trustees? I am. All right, then then if you, Martin, step up to the microphone, please.
Correctly, but the way I heard it, I thought I recalled it. Under the lease, there's a tenant obligation, and then there's a hole. The tenant obligation is up to like $1,500 a year in basic things, or 10,000. But then, as to anything larger, there's no obligation on the landlord or the tenant to do anything. But what the tenant has is the ability to come and do what it's doing now, which is to propose projects to the building. And to support that effort, it creates the James Library Fund. That fund is not, and that's where I wanted to make clear, is not intended for the things that we do that are part of our operations. That's for the matching funds, or the contribution funds, if you will, towards these projects that we come to the borough to ask for approval to do. Now, and I thought I heard that differently from you. That fund is really not for, as you say, the $10,000 obligation.
I actually view it as being for both.
We can view it that way if we like, but from a lease standpoint, what I wanted to be clear to the council is that they're not a misunderstanding. To the extent that the tenant is raising funds and doing fundraising and putting it into that fund, that's meant for capital projects such as we're discussing tonight. But
there's no plan for that.
Well, and that was the other thing too, and I apologize because we talked about this briefly, and I've come to a different understanding of that. That was absolutely the original plan, as I understood it, that Rotolo was going to assist us in raising capital funds.
And I believe
not
that's what
operation
the
funds.
previous director said in her first
right.
presentation.
So, and I'm not sure how that's morphing now, that would be the case. But I wanted to say is that to the extent that there are funds that go into that trust fund, that's really supposed to be for these capital projects. And I think that Tom is saying he feels it's for both. If the museum has the wherewithal to do it for both, but the more important point is that that fund has funds which are supposed to be raised and used for these types of capital projects.
I'd also say the lease specifically says that the borough is invited to contribute to that fund. So
Okay, Ben?
I agree with that, but the fund is the mechanic. The invitation is like any other lease would be. You know, the tenant has no obligation to take care of the building, can go to the landlord and ask for the landlord for permission to do these types of capital projects. And in a way now what's happening is that the tenant is acting as the construction manager, at the same time acting as the grant writer and going out and collecting money for these capital projects. So to the extent that these are really building-related or non-tenant specific improvements, that these would be, as Tom was saying before, they would be jointly funded with the approval of the town. I would go further to that and say this, is that, Councilwoman Bailey and myself and Chris Kellogg and a couple other people from the museum met to discuss this. And it would be in the further entrance of that model of landlord approval of the work is to have the borough engineer involved with approving this work. The project that was done 20 years ago, that's the way it was done. The borough engineer was jointly involved with.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't that part of the statute as well, as for us to actually give money, the borough engineer has to certify the plans?
That could very well be. I would really like that.
The borough engineer is supposed to,
The borough's having a greater role at this point.
Okay, so
in this
we'll,
next phase.
Ben?
Yeah, I just want to get a bit of clarification. So you're saying you have in place a mechanism that if it had sufficient funds would match the 110 that you're asking for?
No, I'm not. You're extrapolating further than what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that under the lease, there is a process for doing these larger investments. And the process is that the tenant identifies the project, comes to the landlord, invites the landlord for approval to do the project, and at the same time what the tenant does is has an operational account, if you will, for which it donates money and it invites the borough to give money. It goes out and collects money, it does fundraising, and it's not a 1-for-1, it's not a 2-for-1, it's nothing specific.
Match.
Not
So that's why I
match.
focused on that.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's no plan at the moment to do anything to raise funds for that particular fund?
Well, we have the Rotolo Associates, which are supposed to assist us in raising funds. What is being described here differently than I understood, and I represented to certain council people, was that that was to raise capital funds. Now, it sounds that the Rotolo is going to advise us on just raising funds, which could have a capital purpose and could have more of a smaller maintenance purpose.
And similar to when the new entrance was added and was, the fundraising the museum may be is on program, expanding, repurposing, or helping the program capital-wise. You know, repurposing a room in the basement, for example, might happen through the fundraising of the, as opposed to this, which is an actual work, maintenance of the building.
And that's not, as you can see from the description here, that's not part of the current project.
Yep.
That would be really a different type of project. That would really be something that's geared towards the tenant's operation.
Yes. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for your work in maintaining a treasure. So this is Ordinance 11, 2015, that is listed for introduction. And number 3, amend Chapter 15 Borough Code, Downtown Development Commission to include a MACA representative. Ostry, again.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor, with the DDC Executive Board and then the whole DDC voted to approve the expansion of the commission to include a MACA representative. I mean, the Madison Arts and Cultural Alliance partners with the Downtown Development Commission so much, and yet they don't have anybody on the DDC, so I approached the DDC and said, you know, what about expanding the membership to include a MACA? They had discussed it in the past. Then Jim drew up the changes that you see in the ordinance.
All right, and that, again, partnership already exists, and it just kind of formalizes with a representative.
I guess I have to ask, some MACA does want to be represented on this board, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is always a good question.
Yes, they do.
It's not as if they
Make
missed
it
a meeting
easier
and found out.
for them, because they partner so much with the DDC.
Any other questions or comments?
I did find on page 3 of the ordinance, I think there is a typo here. Under C, on page 3, I don't think they have 198 members. They have, I think, 19 members.
19 members. But that's a typographical error.
Yeah, that's a,
We can change that.
Yep.
That's de minimis.
yeah, that's what I
All right, so that typo will be corrected, and we don't need to. So again, this is ordinance 12, 2015, that is listed for introduction.
Madison.
All right, ordinances for hearing. The Borough Clerk, please make the statement.
Okay, the ordinance scheduled for hearing was introduced by title and passed on first reading at a regular meeting of the council held on Monday, February the 23rd, 2015. It was posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
I call up ordinance 8, 2015 for second reading. Ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison establishing Chapter 137 of the Borough Code to establish policies and procedures for the Recreation Department of the Borough of Madison.
I open the hearing. Is anyone in the public wishing to comment on ordinance 8? Please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 8-2015.
A second.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 8, 2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. And now we're on to item 15, which is our second invitation for discussion from the public. You may comment on anything, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please step forward to the lectern, state your name, address, and write the same on the clipboard. Any wishing to comment? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting. We move on to introduction of ordinances. May the clerk read the statement.
Ordinance is scheduled for first reading. Have a hearing date set for March 23rd, 2015. All will be published in the Madison Eagle, posted on the bulletin board, and made available to members of the public requesting copies.
I call up ordinances for first reading. Ask the Borough Clerk to read said ordinances by title.
Ordinance 10, 2015, it's ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $110,000 from the Municipal Open Space Trust Fund for restoration and repair of the James Library Building.
Mayor, I move ordinance 10-2015.
A second.
Any further discussion? Rob?
I think the James Library Building is a fantastic piece of architectural work. I think it's important to the town. I think, however, when we acquired it, we did so through a public-private partnership. I also think that when the plan was initially presented to us, there were assurances of some sort of public-private partnership. It now seems that the deal has changed. I can't to engage in private fundraising and not others. I would love to see, before this comes back for its second reading, some sort of an outline that details some sort of private fundraising, for this project. It's north of $2 million. It's a tremendous amount of money for a tremendous building. Having said that, it's just, we need, there needs to be, there's no guarantee that the county will continue to give us all the money. We like to think it's probably going to get done, but we don't know. We've also been presented by our strategic planning committees with a massive bill of infrastructure spending that needs to be done over the next 5, 10, 15 years. We must really take into consideration everything that's been presented to us by the strategic planning committees and the work that's being done by other groups and the history of the project before we just go ahead and commit funds absent a plan. So I would ask that before the second reading, either the trustees of the museum or some other group associated with it come back and present to us some sort of private fundraising to go along with the public money that's going to be spent. Otherwise, I can't vote for it because I'm not sure we're going to have the resources long-term to fund the project. And I'm sorry, I love the building, I think it's a great thing, but when it was initially, presented to us, we were flat out told there was going to be private fundraising. I've rewatched the meeting several times, and I know that when we acquired it, there was a big public-private partnership, and I don't see what's the matter with that model. So, I mean, this is the first reading. I'll vote for it, but absent private fundraising, I can't vote to actually commit the funds.
Yeah, I think from what we heard tonight, it'd be difficult for the Board of Trustees in 2 weeks to come up with a plan. Certainly, I'm not too clear, maybe I misheard.
But they've had well in excess of a year and a half.
Building was not acquired in a partnership, it was given to the borough 115 years ago, so that's
but then wasn't there, I remember there was some financial transaction that happened a number of years ago where you raised significant amounts of money that's...
But part of the renovation that made it ADA compliant and other things was a partnership again.
But there was a big private component to that, right, Martin? Like almost
Yeah,
80%
there was
of it or 90% of it?
private fundraising, as we talked before, a lot of that was because it was also changing the programming of the building and not just maintaining the existing building.
Fair enough. But there is a history of private fundraising
and I
associated with...
certainly would not want to discourage that. I don't think it's realistic for them to come back in 2 weeks with a plan as they outlay that they've hired a consulting firm to help them with it, and it is a process of doing interviews and finding out what their capability of capital fundraising and so on. So it's a process. Austria and then Ben.
I think the museum has been undergoing some major changes now, and it's had, for the past few years, there's been a rockiness to the museum, and they are, as we heard tonight, making changes to make sure it's on a stronger foundation. They also have a partnership with the borough. It's a borough-owned building, so one way or another, the borough has to step up unless it wants to change its partnership to help fund this building. So I think the fundraising component will be there. The other thing you said was you spoke about the needs of capital projects. That comes out of capital funds. This is a project that comes out of open space trust funds. The definition of the trust fund, the open space trust fund, is narrowly defined from general capital projects like roads and other things, unless I misunderstood you.
And as we often forget, because we shortcut it, as we call it open space, but it's historic preservation.
I absolutely appreciate and understand that difference, but what I'm saying is, if you look at the amount of money that needs to be spent in the future, according to the strategic plan, okay, and if you look at the percentage of the budget over which we have no control, which right now is close to 80%, okay, there will come a point in time where we just can't afford to do everything that we want to do. And that is a fact, right? So I understand the difference between capital projects and open space, but, if 80% of the budget is out of our control and growing exponentially, or not exponentially, but rapidly, something's got to give, Bob. Or we're just going to start borrowing, which I don't think anyone wants, okay? And I've studied the recommendations of the committee. I was on one of them, and these are very significant amounts of capital that we're going to have to come up with through our measly 20% of the budget, okay? So, like I said before in the last meeting, everything in the future we're going to have to question, and we're going to have to make some hard decisions going forward. So, just to sit here and think that, we've got this 500 grand coming from pilot or whatever, I mean, that'll get chewed up very quickly. So my point in saying this is that we have to look at the budget in its entirety, okay, and the amount of money that we are going to ask our residents to pay to live here. And that, you know, that's my main concern, and that's why I think for projects like this, we should ask for private
Okay.
fundraising.
Yep, we're going to Ben and then Austri.
Austria.
Well, what I'd like to say is that
Seems to be in the point of back
the
and forth. I'll come in
museum, I mean, not the museum, the people of Madison overwhelmingly voted in, what was it, 2004, for a special tax to preserve our history, to preserve our recreation, and to have passive recreation. So I think you're mixing the two things. I understand we do have, you know, constraints with regard to our other capital projects, but we have this pile of money that the people of Madison said, save it for, and spend it on those projects that we think are important, like recreation, like historic preservation, and acquisition to protect our natural resources.
Yeah,
I think this partnership works, yes. Would I like to see them come back and tell us that they started the James Building Fund up again? I think they can do that. In 2 weeks, I think they can figure out how to, you know, indicate to us that that is something that they want to put towards. And Martin's going, yes, we can.
Yeah, just going back to, you know, your request, even though I said 2 weeks is tough for you to come up with this, I'm sure you're looking for a 6-0 vote. So if you've worked for the next 2 weeks very hard and come back with at least some sort of plan to address Rob's issues, then
Concerns.
Yeah, concerns, yes. Thank you.
I have plenty of issues.
Yes.
This isn't one of them.
Along the same lines, I have to say that I was kind of caught off guard, because when I realized we'd be talking about this, I assumed we were talking about the next iteration or the next payment on a plan we had previously agreed to. I had not realized that the plan had changed. And I recognize that the museum's been under a tremendous amount of pressure, and I have a lot of respect for the people who've worked obviously quite hard to keep it afloat, and at the same time to keep this project going. So for that reason, I'll vote for it. But on the other side, I would like to be kept informed. I think there is, I know there's a tenant, you know, landlord relationship, but it seems rather peculiar in the context of the borough to be talking about this entity that's really in some ways perceived as part of the borough and more than just the building. And, you know, I'd like to see that partnership reestablished. Not only the one where we're shaking hands and providing funds, but the one in which there's some commitment on both sides.
Okay, so I think the trustees have heard. I think just maybe my final comment on is I think one of the challenges we have is we have kind of given the job to a Board of Trustees, two separate jobs. They are running a museum, and they are the stewards of the James Library. And it's this crossover role that we're having trouble to work with, and so maybe that's something we should also work with in the coming weeks and coming years, is to clarify the two different roles, because it is very difficult for them to wear both hats and do it well.
I will say I don't disagree. Basically concurred with a position that was given to us, right? The museum came with the plan to run the project.
Right. And
so, you know, that's, and they seem to be doing a fine job. I have no reason to second guess that or question it, but that wasn't this council's vote.
Right.
That was something that we approved that was brought to us. All I'm saying is I'd like to see it come back the way it was.
Sounds good. So they've got your marching orders. Any other comments? And roll call vote, please.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay, Ordinance 11, 2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $12,000 from the Municipal Open Space Trust Fund for reforestation at the Madison Recreation Complex.
You have to move it.
I move ordinance 11-2015.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay, Ordinance 12, 2015.
I move you
Oh,
me first, sorry.
Yep, let's get,
That's right.
you're a little
Ordinance of the
slow in the last one, you know.
So I'm giving it out.
It's getting late.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 15 of the Madison Borough Code entitled Downtown Development Commission.
Now.
Ordinance 12-2015.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Right, consent agenda resolutions. Can the clerk please read the statement?
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mayor, I move R 86, 2015 through R 98, 2015.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalinello?
I vote yes on all except 96-2015, on which I abstain.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
I'm going to vote yes on everything except for 96, in which I'm going to vote no.
There is no unfinished business. Approval of vouchers.
Public safety, $31,920.97. Health and public assistance, $9,078.68. Public works and engineering, $537,893.02. Community affairs, $588.97. Finance and borough clerk, $3,748,650.88. And utilities, $190,768.91. The total is $4,518,901.43.
I move the vouchers.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Very good. There is no new business.
With that, I move that we adjourn.
Right, second, and all in favor, aye.
Decided to break debt service, and it's now fully covered by the electric service. So when we...
Thank you very much.
Joint meeting. Are we also going to charge you? Is that what we're going to show a separate line?
Now,
Okay.
because the co-chair.
Thank you.
But
No,
now,
I just don't see why you charge electric.